It's a down day on All About Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation. All Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $48,000. It's down about 11% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. Taking a look at our top stories, Bitcoin's price may be taking a dip, but its mining difficulty is hitting a new all-time high, which means miners are still aggressively competing to confirm transactions and earn rewards on the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin's hash rate, a measure of the combined computing power of Bitcoin's miners, is also rising to an all-time high this week, according to multiple sources. Meanwhile, the difficulty adjustment also gives mining pools a fresh start to signal for Bitcoin's Taproot update, an upgrade that aims to make Bitcoin transactions cheaper and more private. At least 90% of mining pools within any given difficulty period must signal their support for the upgrade. At the end of the last signaling period, Taproot had just about 40% acceptance. And MicroStrategy is not backing down, disclosing a 15 million Bitcoin purchase today at an average price of over $55,000 per Bitcoin, even as the crypto markets race lower. The publicly traded business intelligence company has now spent $2.2 billion on Bitcoin.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Elon Musk, the techno king of Tesla, tweeting out this chart that shook the cryptoverse. Bitcoin electricity consumption with the annualized estimate pegged at about 150 terawatt hours or about 20 gigawatts, according to the University of Cambridge. For perspective, that places Bitcoin's energy consumption somewhere between Malaysia and Egypt, according to country data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Musk tweeted this chart as an addendum to his announcement that Tesla is suspending car purchases using Bitcoin due to concerns over, quote, rapidly increasing use of fossil fuels for Bitcoin mining and transactions, especially coal, which has the worst emission of any fuel. And joining us now to discuss is Zach Bradford, CEO of CleanSpark, a Bitcoin mining company in Salt Lake City, Utah. Welcome, Zach.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Great to have you. What a day to join. So the Bitcoin network uses a lot of energy. Millions of computers are running the Bitcoin software, gathering transactions into blocks and solving increasingly difficult mathematical equations to add those blocks onto the Bitcoin blockchain. How do you address the concerns presented by Tesla CEO Elon Musk that Bitcoin is harming the environment?
You know, that's an interesting question. And, I like to look at it from a point of view that all of us as Bitcoin miners, we can either self-govern or we can be governed. And by regulations, it can be short-sighted. And actually, what we try to do as a company is actually prove that it can be done sustainably. And it can be done sustainably, not just in far reaches of the world, but in the United States. So that's actually an initiative that we have, is to mine our Bitcoin carbon free. Now, we may be looking at it from the point of view of we're doing it 95% carbon free. We're intending to take it even further. But I also want to speak a little bit broader to the industry as a whole. And I think we have to ask ourselves a question, and that is this a fair question to ask? And I think it is, but also it needs to be asked a little more broadly. And looking at, for example, social media from the perspective of, do we value selfies more than we value cryptocurrency and the security of the blockchain that it brings? Nobody's asking the question of how much data and how much power is being used by Facebook to host selfies. And I would venture a guess that it's a lot more. So I think it comes in two phases. One, we do need to be responsible. It can be done. We're doing it as a company. And that's why I feel like we're in a good spot when this tweet came out. It's good to be on the right side of that question. But I think as an industry, it has to be looked broader about data center usage. And if the critics are going to be there about Bitcoin, they need to be fair about all data centers. So, and we're big believers in the value of the blockchain and being a participant in it. And so although we're in a good spot, I think it's still a broad question. And I think it was a little bit unfair that it was posed the way it was, especially the platform that Musk has.
Mm-hmm. Is the timing of Elon's message questionable to you? This debate has been around for a long time on sustainable Bitcoin. Why is he bringing it up right now?
That's an interesting question, and I think we can all have our theories, and not just throw stones too much, because I think the work Elon's doing is really impressive. And also, we actually got into Bitcoin as an energy company, and so we use some of Tesla's products in our energy, what we do in our energy business for microgrids. But what I do have to say, I do think it was a little suspicious. Obviously, the way that Bitcoin's behaved has gone really well. I don't think anybody was buying cars with Bitcoin. And I also think that it's not necessarily a coincidence that, there was just recent news about pollution from the factory, from the Tesla factory. So I think it's part of, the move he made was smart in the sense it was good for Tesla to really express itself as, chasing down green energy and trying to be green in all aspects of the business. So it was a fair thing for them to do. I do think the timing is a little suspect, especially around Dogecoin and some of the statements. But, it is what it is. And I think if anybody makes their decision about how they look at Bitcoin based upon that tweet yesterday, we all of us in the space need to think more in in years, not days. And, we're still extremely bullish on Bitcoin. I think this too shall pass, and we'll keep moving forward.
Elon made mention that he would consider having Bitcoin transactions if it became more sustainable, and that he would explore, or Tesla would explore, potentially transactions with cryptocurrencies that use less than 1% of the energy that Bitcoin uses. Is that a call perhaps toward other cryptocurrencies?
Maybe it is, and I would even put it a different way. If that's a concern, we would be happy to facilitate Bitcoin transactions over to Tesla in a 95% carbon neutral way. So I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, I think you need to look at what cryptocurrency is and how it's a utility and its purpose as a store of value or as other things. And I think Bitcoin has proven itself to be the best. So.
Zach, you mentioned non-carbon ways of renewable energy sources. So what kind of renewable energy sources are you using?
What we're using right now is we're largely backed by nuclear energy. So we're actually purchasing excess nuclear energy. I won't get into the green debate, but from the point of view of it being emissions free, that's what we're doing. We will be adding solar power to our facility also. And that's a big part of what we expect to do in our long-term expansion is use even more nuclear power that is also carbon free. But then in future facilities, we really want to leverage solar farms and things like that to be our power source.
Yeah, it's interesting. And from my understanding, hydroelectric power is the number one use of power by miners around the world, followed by coal and natural gas. That is a concern, though, of Elon Musk, that the emissions of things like coal is too high. But Zach, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate your time and going over the basics of renewable energy and Bitcoin.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
All right, that was Zach Bradford, CEO of CleanSpark. Coming up, Coinbase earnings will be released after today's market close. We'll have analyst expectations next.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index XBX has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
CoinDesk indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Welcome back. The U.S. Department of Justice and IRS are investigating Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange by volume, for money laundering, according to a Bloomberg report. In response, Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao tweeted, "The news title is bad. Article itself isn't so bad, actually, but who reads?" It described how Binance collaborated with law enforcement agencies to fight bad players, but somehow made it look like a bad thing. Anyways, back to work. Meanwhile, Coinbase earnings results will be released after the closing bell today. Shares are down over 30% from its intraday peak of almost $430 on the crypto exchange's April 14th debut. And joining us now to discuss is New Construct CEO David Traynor in Nashville. Welcome, David, to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so David, when you were here last, you said Coinbase was way overvalued, that the stock should be worth something like $50. We're a long way from there, but the price is coming down. Are you still sticking with that price forecast?
Yes, we are. We think that Coinbase is going to be subject to competition. Blockchain is not designed for corporate entities to exact unduly high rents from society. I think blockchain is meant to democratize access to financial activities in a way that wasn't possible before and lower costs to society for those activities. And that means corporate profits are going to get smaller, not larger. And so Coinbase is really almost an exploitation of blockchain as opposed to a pure application of blockchain.
An exploitation of blockchain, what do you mean by that?
I mean, it's taking blockchain technology and promise and exploiting it to create enormous amounts of wealth for the bankers and the executives that created the company. When really blockchain is about sort of disintermediating these toll takers in the financial business that have been there for a long time, and really returning that wealth back to society. Whereas Coinbase is a traditional sort of public equity listing, and they sold a lot of shares, and what they still have around $58 billion valuation, right? For and that created a lot of value for a precious few people and bankers, and that's really not what I think blockchain is about. And regardless of that, philosophically, the business is still at a very big competitive advantage. There aren't any barriers to entry to copy what Coinbase is doing. There are meaningful barriers to entry.
Okay.
That's the nature of blockchain.
So in April, Coinbase posted some pretty impressive numbers. It had 56 million verified users, 6.1 million active users. Trading volumes topped 335 billion in the first quarter, and total assets topped 220 billion. They promote themselves as the gateway to retail investors coming into the crypto industry. So you still believe that it's not an institutional, more of a corporate play than something that opens the doors for retail investors?
When I say corporate, I'm really talking about the nature of the governance of Coinbase, right? We're not talking about smart contracts and automated market making, which effectively decentralizes all of the activities that are centralized in an entity like Coinbase. And when the activities are centralized, they're not as transparent, and it allows managers, executives, and companies to exact unnaturally high rents in a blockchain world. Now, in terms of giving access to individual investors, yeah, they've got wallets. That's great, and they can make it easy for people to trade, convert their dollars into crypto and to exchange that and to trade. But it's an offline exchange, right? It's an off-chain exchange. The actual exchange is not on blockchain. The only blockchain part of Coinbase is really the wallets, and so there are a lot of entities that are going to be able to provide and already do provide very similar services and compete with Coinbase directly. And there's more money going into those all the time. Mm-hmm. And yes, Coinbase is doing pretty well here in the front end, and they probably will do well for a little while, but not nearly as well as what's baked into the valuation.
Mm-hmm. Several analysts say Coinbase, though, is a buy. Oppenheimer has set the price target up above $400. They say that Coinbase is an innovator in the space, that people are getting into crypto because of Coinbase. Others even peg the price target above $500. Some say that institutional investors and hedge funds are coming into the space, and that needs to be priced into the valuation. Is there any truth to that?
Institutionals and investors are coming in as competitors in a lot of cases, right? Peter Thiel just recently put a ton of money into a competing exchange. You got Uniswap out there. There's there's a lot of big competitors coming, and that's where I put my money, not in Wall Street analyst projections. I used to be on Wall Street. Wall Street analysts, they've got to make sure they please their bankers. The bankers are the ones that make the money. The analysts don't make money for the firm. So you always need to take the Wall Street analyst ratings and price targets with a little bit of a grain of salt.
All right. Fair enough, David. Thanks for joining us and appreciate your insights. All right, that was New Construct CEO David Traynor in Nashville. That's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover, your first look at the day's global crypto news headlines. Community Crypto with Isaiah Jackson is coming up at 5 p.m. You're watching CoinDesk TV.